screams echoed through the 112 emergency line. "He's coming back! He's getting inside! It hurts! Please help me!" Then, the sound of the door bursting open. One deadly second of silence. The call was cut. That is exactly what happened on April 1st, 2012, in Suwon, South Korea. A 28-year-old woman, Kwak Mo, was on her usual way home from work. But that night, the darkness wasn't just night. It was a warning of an impending nightmare. A mysterious man stood waiting behind a public phone booth. As Kwak passed by, he jumped out, dragging her into his damp, shabby room, less than 500 meters from the scene. He bound her hands and feet with duct tape, gagged her mouth with the intent to assault her. In panic, the girl struggled and cried for help. But that night, no patrol car came to the right location. No one broke in to save her. The police heard everything, and still hung up. The next morning, a gruesome crime shocked all of South Korea. A dismembered body was found in a suitcase. Kwak Mo had been cut into 280 pieces. Why didn't the police save her? Was there more to this case than just a murder? Subscribe now and watch until the end to uncover the chilling truth behind the Suwon dismemberment case. Kwak Mo was born in 1984. The youngest of three sisters, she was gentle, reserved, and often described by coworkers as quiet, hardworking, and never complained. Every day, Kwak worked at a mobile phone parts factory in Gwancheom-gu. Her shifts often ran into the night, but she never took leave without reason. On the night of April 1st, 2012, she stayed late to finish an urgent order. On her way home, she took a small alley behind Jidong Elementary School, a familiar shortcut leading to her ground-floor apartment. It was a 7-minute walk, but that night, it became the path to her tragic end. In the dark, a man had been stalking Kwak. Hiding behind the phone booth, he watched her like a predator waiting for its prey. When Kwak reached the deserted intersection, he sprang out, covered her mouth, and dragged her into the shabby house next door, his own residence. Inside the damp room, Kwak was tied with duct tape, gagged, and thrown to the floor like an object. For hours, the man repeatedly tried to assault her, but Kwak fought back fiercely, kicking, biting, struggling, making it impossible for him to proceed. That's when he resorted to violence to intimidate her. Near dawn, the man temporarily left the room, possibly to get tools to hide evidence. In that brief moment, Kwak knocked over a stack of books with her head and used her elbow to push a desk phone off the table. Though tied up, she used her toes to remove the tape from her mouth, then crawled to the phone and dialed 112 with her nose. It was her last desperate attempt, also the bravest act of her life. In a state of panic yet clarity, she gave all the necessary details. She had been kidnapped by a stranger. The house was behind Jidong Elementary School, near Motgol Playground. She tried her best to describe the location, hoping the person on the line would understand the urgency. But what she received wasn't help, but a series of meaningless and slow questions, confirming if she was attacked, asking again for the address, demanding the suspect's identity when the situation didn't allow her to respond. As time passed hopelessly, sudden sounds emerged, the door being kicked in, rushing footsteps, followed by sounds of struggle and muffled cries heard through the phone. Those sounds reached the 112 system, but no one intervened in time. Over the next 6 minutes, the call continued recording. The sound of tape tearing, painful moans, something dropping to the floor. Then everything faded. It was no longer an emergency call. It became a live recording of a tragedy unfolding in real time. At the dispatch center, the emergency call was logged, but without an exact location. Though the victim mentioned Jidong Elementary School, there was no GPS tracking system in place. As a result, over 2 hours later, when the case appeared serious, the police finally compared the phone number and residential data. The caller's name appeared: Kwak Mo, 28, office worker, living alone in Suwon. At the same time, her family also called the police, reporting that she had been completely unreachable since the previous evening. Only then did the police declare an emergency. But it was already too late. The patrol team was still searching the wrong location. The room where she was held was less than 1 kilometer away, but outside the marked search area. At this point, they contacted the Gunsan police station, where Kwak's official residence was registered, to verify her whereabouts. As feared, she was not at home, further confirming the original report. But all actions came too late. 2 hours after the fateful call, the Gyeonggi Provincial Police's 112 Center issued an emergency alert to all units in Suwon. Woman attacked near Jidong Elementary School in front of Mokgol Playground. The action order was dispatched that night. However, the alert lacked a key detail. The victim had clearly said she was being held inside a house behind the school. That crucial information was never passed along. That's why the entire response team searched outside, among alleys, playgrounds, and fields. 11 personnel, including 2 patrol cars and 5 mobile detectives, began sweeping the Mokgol Playground area, nearly 1 kilometer away from the actual scene. The more they searched, the further they got from the victim. Throughout the night and early morning, law enforcement didn't knock on doors or check houses, because they were afraid of disturbing residents' sleep, something truly absurd. The initial strategy was merely to press their ears against windows and listen. If no sound was detected, they left. No one broke the door, no one stormed in, and no one asked, if the victim was gagged, how could she scream? Everything sank into silence, later seen as the most brutal failure of the emergency response system. By the afternoon of April 2nd, when the case had made no progress, police finally ordered reinforcements. 2 more mobile detective teams and 2 patrol cars. But the added units only arrived at 6:50 p.m., over 40 hours after the initial call. A turning point came at 11:30 a.m. that same day when a resident reported, "I heard a fight from the ground floor unit next door." Immediately, the special units narrowed the search and suddenly apprehended a suspicious man dragging a heavy suitcase from the scene. Inside, police found 3 smaller plastic bags and bloodstains scattered across the floor and bathroom. The small ground floor unit reeked of chemicals and decomposing flesh. The forensics report revealed a total of 280 body parts were manually dismembered using kitchen knives, scissors, and sharp tools. The parts were uneven, with jagged wounds, indicating amateur skill but obsessive intent. Additionally, experts found blood in the sink, drag marks from the living room to the bathroom, and remnants of duct tape used to restrain the victim, some still stuck with hair and fabric from Kwok's clothes. All evidence confirmed one undeniable truth. The killer acted brutally, deliberately, and tried to conceal the crime by gradually removing body parts. The perpetrator's identity was quickly revealed. Oh Won-chun, an illegal Chinese immigrant living in a shabby house right next to the scene. During interrogation, he confessed, on the day of the crime, he saw Kwok returning from work, hid behind a pole, jumped her from behind, gagged her, and dragged her into his room. For hours, he attempted to sexually assault her twice but failed as the victim fought back fiercely. Realizing he couldn't fulfill his sick desire, he turned to murder. On April 2nd, he struck her with a heavy object, then strangled her to death with his bare hands. He then moved the body to the bathroom and began the horrific act of dismembering Kwok Eun-soo, placing parts into a suitcase and plastic bags for gradual disposal. At the station, he tried to fabricate a story, claiming he accidentally bumped into her while walking and was provoked. However, CCTV footage later exposed everything. His stalking, ambush, and active dragging of the victim were all clearly recorded by neighborhood cameras. Oh Won-chun, whose Chinese name is Wu Yuan-chun, was born in 1969 in Jilin Province, China. He had worked as a construction laborer across northern regions before illegally entering South Korea via sea from Shandong in the late 2000s. In Korea, he lived underground in Suwon, working odd jobs and staying illegally in a ground floor rental unit. The crime scene. No friends, no contacts, no legal papers. He lived like a shadow within the city. Upon arrest, he claimed the attack wasn't premeditated, but happened because she bumped into him on the street. However, investigations showed he had stalked her for days, knowing exactly when she got off work and her route home. On April 2nd, after the body was discovered, Suwon Central Police held a press conference. They confirmed it was a brutal murder, but deliberately left out the critical detail. The victim had called 112 for help, yet their cover-up was soon exposed. On April 5th, the Gyeonggi police released the original 7-minute 36-second recording, capturing the full screams, pleas, struggles, and the rescue system's hopeless silence. This sharply contrasted with their initial statement. that the call lasted only 1 minute 20 seconds, ending right when the door broke in. They claimed they couldn't respond because the call had been cut abruptly. In reality, after the 1:20 mark, the system kept recording over 6 more minutes of desperate screams. "Please help me. Why are you doing this?" Sounds that were unmistakable and undeniable. Under intense public backlash, police claimed the victim had stopped responding, so they couldn't confirm the location. And the decision not to release the recording was an internal procedure. Worse yet, internal reports showed the police had falsified deployment numbers. From the original 11 officers, inflated to 35 to make results appear better. The more truth emerged, the more public trust collapsed. This wasn't just a murder, it was a systemic failure, from delays and negligence to cover-ups and lies. When the distorted recording, exaggerated manpower, and neglected emergency call were exposed, the entire nation erupted in outrage. A system meant to protect citizens was now accused of being the indirect cause of the victim's death. On April 6th, under public pressure, Gyeonggi Provincial Police Chief Seo Chon-ho was forced to issue a public apology. Officers directly involved in the command process were placed under internal monitoring, but these measures only further fueled public anger. The storm of criticism didn't stop. Every day, the press uncovered more flaws in the system, overlapping procedures, and deadly indifference. Eventually, National Police Chief Cho Han-oh and Provincial Chief Seo Chun-ho had to publicly resign. In a bitter twist, the victim's family had contacted the Disaster and Fire Response Center for help in locating her, and that center, not the police, tracked the suspect's location. A painful paradox. The fire department ended up doing the job meant for law enforcement. This revealed a legal loophole. While fire departments in South Korea can instantly trace caller locations, police are restricted. They cannot track without the caller's consent or a precise address. After the resignation of the top 2 officials, attention turned to internal accountability. There was no room left for cover-ups. A long list of individuals held responsible was released. 11 officers directly or indirectly involved were disciplined. These included the head of life safety at the Gyeonggi Police Agency, the command group leader at 112 Center, the emergency call operator, and the chief investigator at Suwon Station. Disciplinary actions included demotions, suspensions, warnings, and summons for Prime Minister-level hearings. Even the public relations officer, who had sugar-coated the story for the media, was listed. The system was now under surgical scrutiny, no more safe zones for negligence. The overwhelming public pressure and horror of Kwak Mo's death forced the National Assembly to act. On May 2, 2012, the 112 Location Tracking Act was officially passed during a full assembly session. On May 14th, the law was enacted to take effect 6 months later. Though some provisions were criticized as too weak to prevent abuse, the case became a historic catalyst for legal reform in South Korea. On April 7, 2012, less than a week after the case went public, prosecutors officially recommended the death penalty for Oh Won-chun, citing the severity of the crime: murder, dismemberment, and attempted concealment. Alongside this was a proposal for 30 years of electronic ankle monitoring as an additional sentence. On June 15, 2012, Criminal Division 11 of Suwon District Court, presided over by Judge Lee Dong-hoon, sentenced the defendant to death. The ruling included disclosure of his personal information for 10 years and 30 years of electronic monitoring, a sentence that seemed to close the case. However, Oh Won-chun appealed, refusing to accept the maximum sentence. On October 18, 2012, during the appellate trial at the Seoul High Court, Judge Kim Ki-jung made a controversial ruling. While the crime was brutal, there wasn't enough evidence to prove the dismemberment was for commercial purposes. Therefore, the death penalty was deemed too harsh. The sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. This ruling was upheld by the Supreme Court of Korea on January 16, 2013, ending the legal proceedings with a highly disputed outcome. Kwak Mo's death was not only a personal tragedy, but a stern warning against a system overly reliant on rigid procedures and lacking awareness. A distress call that lasted more than 6 minutes. Cries, struggles, muffled screams, "Please help me." Yet it was treated as a non-emergency. Police once claimed, "We couldn't track her without consent." But when the victim can no longer speak, who asks for her permission? The Suwon case is a bloody lesson in how regulations fail when humanity is removed from the center. It's proof of the horrifying consequences when public trust is abandoned. What do you think about this issue? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This video concludes here. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. In June 2023, at a construction site on the outskirts of Phnom Penh, Cambodia, a worker suddenly discovered a decomposing body floating under a water-filled pit. The victim was identified as a famous South Korean streamer, which caused an uproar not only in Cambodia but also throughout Southeast Asia when the case was discovered. The body was found without a bra, with underwear worn inside out, a swollen and discolored face, and signs of early decomposition. The police began investigating and identified the suspects as a Chinese couple with close ties to the victim. It remains unclear whether this is a standalone murder case or something more horrifying behind it. The answer will be revealed now. Please like and subscribe, because the story you are about to hear is not just a case, it is a journey into the darkness of truth, where the victim might have been betrayed by those she trusted most. On the morning of June 6, 2023, at a village on the outskirts of Phnom Penh, Cambodia, a worker operating an excavator in a waterlogged pit was startled when he discovered a red object wrapped tightly in electrical wires floating in the mud. Noticing something unusual, he called security to check. Upon closer inspection, both men were stunned to realize it was a decomposing body. The police were immediately called to the scene. After an initial examination, the victim was identified as a woman, estimated to be between 30 to 40 years old, with pale skin and physical features typical of East Asians. Although the face had been severely disfigured, some personal belongings were still found on the body, but no phone. Notably, the victim was not wearing a bra, and her underwear was inside out, raising suspicions of possible sexual assault. From fingerprints, the victim was identified as Byun Ah-young, 33 years old, a South Korean citizen and former famous BJ live streamer on Africa TV. She entered Cambodia on June 1, 2023, for tourism. Byun Ah-young, also known as Aung, was not only famous on Africa TV, but also a familiar face on Instagram, YouTube, and had participated in numerous live streams in China, attracting tens of thousands of viewers per broadcast. However, by March 2023, the online community was shocked when she announced she was taking a break from all online activities to find a normal life. In a private message to a close friend, Byun Ah-young revealed the real reason. "I feel like someone is following me. Every time I go outside, I feel unsafe. I need to take a break from social media." From that point on, Byun Ah-young remained relatively silent on social media. At the end of May, she unexpectedly left South Korea for Cambodia. According to entry records, she stayed at the apartment of a married couple she knew. The husband was a Chinese citizen, and the wife was Korean, living in a high-end apartment in the southern part of Phnom Penh. The building had a strict security system, requiring guests to register for entry, with cameras at all lobby and elevator entrances. Byun Ah-young was recorded as staying at the apartment since June 1st. On the afternoon of June 4th, she told her housemate that she wasn't feeling well and would go to a nearby clinic. This was the last time they saw her. The building's lobby camera recorded Byun Ah-young leaving the apartment at 3:57 p.m., wearing a black sports outfit, matching the clothes found on her body 2 days later. 17 minutes later, a street camera recorded her walking while looking at her phone, heading towards a private clinic with a blue sign. The clinic was located on Street 446, Buon Kenkang District, with a blue metal door with the word Fu Happiness on it. No doctor's name, just some chairs, a drug shelf, and a sign listing almost all medical specialties: Chinese medicine, Western medicine, obstetrics, dermatology, acupuncture. According to nearby shopkeepers, the clinic was often empty, with some days passing without any visitors. When there were customers, most of them were Chinese, and it was rare to see Koreans visiting. A street camera clearly recorded Byun Ah-young entering the clinic at 4:14 p.m., but no one saw her leave. Exactly 1 hour and 40 minutes later, at 5:52 p.m., the camera recorded the blue metal door being closed. At the same time, the blue sign unexpectedly turned off. 20 minutes passed in silence. At 6:12 p.m., a woman in a white coat exited the clinic, glancing around suspiciously before quickly re-entering. At 6:19 p.m., the sign lit up again. Later, a man on a motorcycle was seen repeatedly entering and exiting the clinic area. He carried black bags whose contents were unclear, and his last departure was at 9:05 p.m. Everything seemed to have ended, but at 12:53 a.m., a blue 2007 Toyota Prius with license plate 2B229717 unexpectedly stopped in front of the clinic. The camera showed a woman sitting in the passenger seat getting out. The car reversed close to the gate, but due to the angle, no one knew what happened inside for the next 10 minutes. At 1:03 a.m., the woman returned to the passenger seat. The car left the clinic, silently as if it had never been there. From 4:14 p.m. to 1:03 a.m., more than 8 hours, Byun-ah-young completely disappeared from all surveillance cameras, and all the events above seemed suspicious. The investigation clarified the identities of the two main figures captured on camera. They were the clinic owners, a Chinese couple named Lai Van-tio, 30, and Tai Tui-kian, 39. What's surprising is that neither of them had medical licenses, and the clinic operated illegally under the name Comprehensive Medical Consultation. According to immigration records, the couple had only arrived in Cambodia about 6 months prior, lived a reclusive life, and had little contact with neighbors. They spoke Mandarin and avoided discussing their background. Nearby residents described them as wealthy but cold, often traveling by motorcycle or an old car, but never drawing attention until the crime occurred. The police began expanding their investigation into Tai Tu-kian, the wife of the couple running the clinic. They discovered she came from a family with a traditional Chinese medicine background in Guangzhou, China. Meanwhile, Lai Van-tio, her husband, was just a manual laborer. However, through his connection with his wife's family, he had learned some basic healthcare techniques, such as massage, intravenous injections, and even using unlicensed drugs. After having a child, the couple decided to move to Cambodia to start a business. According to records, they entered Cambodia from China in December 2022 and rented an apartment and space to open a clinic in Phnom Penh. Currently, the couple is confirmed to be raising a 7-month-old child, which added pressure to the investigation. As if they were guilty, they committed the crime with a child in the house. The police's hypothesis: after Byun-ah-young died, her body was stuffed into the trunk of the Toyota Prius and transported to a construction site about 20 kilometers from the clinic, where the body was discovered on June 6. Nearby security cameras recorded the blue Prius with license plate 2B29717 turning around 5 times between 1:30 and 2 a.m., as if searching for a spot to dispose of the body. Residents near the area recalled, "I heard a car start in the middle of the night, and then someone screamed. It was unclear whether it was a man or a woman." Another person described hearing a loud crash and a strange smell in the air. Additionally, the investigation revealed this was not the first time Byun-ah-young had visited the clinic. Security cameras confirmed that at 11:58 a.m. on June 3rd, she had been there, wearing the same black sports outfit as the one found on her body later. Although it is unclear what she came for, this appearance proves that she was no stranger to the clinic, increasing suspicions about the previous relationship between the victim and the suspects. On June 16th, the Cambodian police officially arrested Lai Van-tio and Tai Tui-kian for investigation regarding the disposal of a corpse and suspicion of organized murder. During questioning, Lai Van-tio completely denied killing Byun-ah-young. He only admitted, "I saw her unconscious and thought she was dead. I panicked, so I disposed of the body." He further stated, "I didn't know she was famous, and I didn't know her real name. I never watched her live streams or social media." However, the police were skeptical of this statement due to several inconsistencies with camera data, evidence at the scene, and the victim's personal belongings. At this point, public opinion in South Korea began to erupt. The hashtag #JusticeForByun-ah-young spread across Twitter, with the online community demanding the release of the suspects' identities, calling for an independent investigation, and insisting the case not be forgotten. According to his statement to the police, Lee Van-teo said Byun-ah-young first visited the clinic on June 3rd. She just rested for a while and left without using any services. On the afternoon of June 4, the day of the incident, she returned to the clinic for the second time. This time, she requested an injection of an unknown substance, suspected to be an illegal drug. Lee Van-teo claimed that he refused this request. Instead, he proposed injecting her with an immunity-boosting serum, which he said would help her recover her strength. Some Korean media reported that it was just saline solution. However, investigative materials in Cambodia confirmed that the substance injected was a serum, with its composition still unknown. After a few minutes of injection, Byun-ah-young began having seizures, her whole body losing control. Instead of calling emergency services, Lee Van-teo decided to give her 4 to 5 pills of Ku Tum Hwan, a type of Chinese herbal medicine. After a few minutes of silence, her body became motionless. She had no response and passed away shortly thereafter. Facing the sudden death, Lee Van-teo panicked. He realized he was practicing medicine illegally. Without a license and insurance, he was terrified. That's why he decided to dispose of the body. At that time, Tai Tui-kien, his wife, was caring for their baby in the next room. She was unaware of what was happening. Taking advantage of his wife going to the bathroom, Lee Van-teo alone dragged Byun-ah-young's body into the trunk of the Prius. When he got in the car, Tai Tui-kien did not notice anything unusual. She sat in the passenger seat. On the way, Lee Van-teo stopped the car at a roadside restaurant. He asked his wife to get out of the car, and it was then that Tai Tui-kien heard about what had happened. Once alone, he drove to the disposal location, a construction site over 20 kilometers away. After disposing of the body, he returned to pick up his wife as if nothing had happened. Both the husband and wife denied injecting the illegal substance into the victim. They claimed that if it was done, it was at Byun-ah-young's request. The substance in question was propofol, a high-dose anesthetic drug known for its ability to induce euphoria and hallucinations, and it is highly addictive. Propofol is strictly controlled in South Korea and has been involved in many medical scandals in the entertainment industry. In South Korea, propofol, the substance suspected to have been used in Byun-ah-young's death, is also known as happy milk or milk injection, due to its milky white appearance and the euphoric feeling it produces. Propofol was at the center of several medical scandals, especially in the entertainment industry. In early 2022, famous actor Yoo Ah-in was also arrested for using this substance illegally. A Korean journalist conducted an independent investigation in Phnom Penh. The result, for just $13, you could buy 50 milliliters of propofol at roadside pharmacies without a prescription. However, when the journalist visited pharmacies near the apartment where Byun-ah-young had stayed, all the staff claimed they had never seen a girl like her. It is currently unclear whether the victim used propofol. The sample has been sent to an independent analysis lab overseas. A Cambodian investigator stated that the victim's urine test was negative for illegal substances, including propofol. However, he admitted the limited forensic capabilities locally. The autopsy report provided by the Cambodian police was not a standard forensic analysis. It was only a superficial description, lacking toxicology, DNA tests, or signs of assault. In fact, there were contradictions in the report. The initial section described damage to the eye socket, bruising on the neck, and scratches on the skin, suggesting assault. But later sections denied any physical interference. More importantly, no DNA tests were conducted. This makes the assault accusation unverifiable. When asked about this, Lee Van-teo strongly rebutted, "If you suspect I assaulted her, just test the DNA. If I did it, there would definitely be traces left." However, this challenge was meaningless, because no DNA samples were ever collected. The victim was buried without proper forensic procedures. The Cambodian police explained that in-depth testing can only be done with a prosecutor's order, and a valid reason must be provided. In this case, they didn't find sufficient grounds. This sparked outrage in the South Korean community. A foreign citizen dies at an illegal clinic and no one bothers to collect DNA samples? Another hypothesis was raised. Byuna Young may not have been abused, and the marks on her body were a result of natural decomposition in Cambodia's hot and humid climate. Her body had been immersed in the mud and water for at least a day, from the afternoon of June 4th, the time of death suspected to have occurred at the clinic, until it was found on the morning of June 6. The humid environment accelerated the decomposition process. The face could have swollen, the skin turned blue due to bacteria from the intestines spreading and blood pooling after death. These symptoms could easily be mistaken for signs of assault. However, as of now, Cambodia has not released the official cause of death of the victim. The victim's family confirmed Byuna Young was not a drug addict, had no history of substance abuse, and did not use psychiatric medication. Initially, her family refused the Cambodian police's request for an autopsy, wanting the deceased to rest in peace. However, under Cambodian law, an autopsy is required if ordered by a prosecutor, especially in unusual deaths involving foreigners. With the support of Cambodia's judicial authorities and the South Korean embassy, the victim's family consented to the autopsy. Due to limitations in technique and expertise, the samples were sent to an independent forensic agency overseas, likely in Australia or New Zealand, for testing. On June 14, 2023, the Cambodian police officially charged Lai Van Thio, 30, and Tai Tui Quyen, 39, with murder and brutal torture. If convicted, both could face life imprisonment, according to the provisions for serious cases involving foreigners. However, in the absence of official information and the unreported forensic results, social media erupted with a series of controversial hypotheses. The first hypothesis suggested Byuna Young came to Cambodia for an illegal cosmetic surgery, tipped off by friends in the streaming community. A security guard who was present at the scene testified that he saw a needle mark on the victim's buttocks, raising suspicions of buttock enhancement using filler or liquid silicone. The bruises on her body may not be signs of assault, but complications after undergoing an unsafe surgery at an unlicensed facility. Many netizens believe that Lai Van Thio's clinic was actually part of an illegal cosmetic surgery ring, catering to East Asian clients, especially streamers, influencers, and amateur models. Byuna Young may have been introduced to this clinic by the couple she was staying with, a detail that complicates the suspicions even further. Additionally, a source from South Korea revealed that Byuna Young had visited Cambodia in 2019, coinciding with the time the couple was believed to have started operating in Phnom Penh. This raised the question, could they have known each other before? And was it this relationship that brought her back to Cambodia in 2023? The second hypothesis took a darker turn. Byuna Young may have been the victim of a human trafficking or covert sex trade ring, a persistent problem in Cambodia. According to this theory, she visited the clinic both times voluntarily, with no signs of being coerced from the outside. However, her death may have stemmed from resistance during the process of being deceived or forced, turning the case into a tragedy. The third hypothesis, Lai Van Thio's clinic served as a front for a covert drug trafficking operation. Over several months, the clinic had almost no clients, but remained in a high-end apartment building, paying high rent, raising questions about the real source of its finances. Moreover, the clinic listed a wide range of treatments: Chinese medicine, Western medicine, obstetrics, dermatology, psychiatry, acupuncture. Yet inside there were almost no medical devices, just some chairs and a drug shelf. This made it look like a cover clinic to disguise illegal drugs, including propofol and other synthetic drugs. According to this assumption, Byuna Young may have visited the clinic to buy drugs for personal use. Or according to Lai Van Thio's family's statement, she had injected an illegal substance beforehand and then requested more serum to balance her condition. However, this hypothesis faced many rebuttals. Firstly, the victim's urine test came back negative for illegal substances, including propofol and amphetamines. Secondly, Byuna Young's behavior, walk, and gestures on the security camera were completely normal. There were no signs of someone who had just used drugs. Unresolved questions continued to pile up. Why did she choose Cambodia as her destination? Who introduced her to the clinic? Was there a middleman in South Korea involved? The initial autopsy lacked many important forensic procedures, including DNA testing, biological traces, and detailed toxicology, causing public doubts about possible accomplices or interference. The case gradually became a maze of contradictions, gaps, and unverified hypotheses, while the silence from the Cambodian police further fueled suspicions. The only thing that is certain, the true cause of Byun Ah-young's death remains a mystery. The unusual and hard-to-explain details make this case extremely complicated and sensitive from a diplomatic standpoint. Finding the truth is inevitable, but with the political, legal, and media pressures weighing heavily, getting a clear answer in a short period of time is almost impossible. We will update you with the latest information on the case. This video ends here. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so we can bring more strange, emotional stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. And see you in the next video. And see you in the next video.
In 2004, in Korea, a 14-year-old female student was gang-raped by 44 male high school students for a year. Not stopping there, these predators forced her to deceive her younger sister and cousin to satisfy their desires. When the incident was uncovered, it seemed that they would face severe punishment. However, the school, a place that should have been safe, turned its back on her, pushing her further into darkness. Law enforcement agencies compounded the harm by blaming the victim. 2 decades later, a case thought to be buried was suddenly brought to light by a mysterious YouTuber, exposing horrifying truths that enraged society. You are watching a true story. Let's uncover dark secrets and thrilling details you've never heard before. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to explore today's story. Miryang, where the incident occurred, is a small city in Gyeongsangnam Province, South Korea. The city develops slowly, blending tradition with modernity. Small winding roads lead to schools shaded by green trees. However, behind its peaceful appearance, a darkness silently creeps in, concealing cruel acts that no one could have imagined. The victim in this story, Choi, a 14-year-old girl, grew up in a poor family. Her father was an alcoholic and unemployed, while her mother was the breadwinner of the household. Because of this, arguments at home happened frequently. Her father even brutally beat her mother and siblings. By January 2003, unable to endure it any longer, Choi's mother decided to divorce and leave their home in Ulsan, abandoning Choi and her 2 younger siblings under the control of their abusive father. Without her mother, every time her father came home drunk, Choi became his main target. The insults and continuous violence turned her life into a nightmare. Unable to confide in anyone, Choi sought solace through online conversations. That's when she met Kim, an 18-year-old male student from Myeryang, about an hour from Ulsan. They met by chance when Choi accidentally dialed the wrong number while calling a friend, and Kim answered. From there, they occasionally chatted. Kim appeared very friendly and cleverly persuaded Choi to visit Myeryang. Unaware of Kim's true identity, Choi agreed without much concern. In reality, Kim was a member of the Myeryang Alliance, a notorious group known for bullying and extorting money from classmates. Choi had no idea of the danger awaiting her. When Choi arrived in Myeryang, Kim introduced her to Park, the group's leader. From the first meeting, the atmosphere turned tense as Park demanded money from Choi. When Choi said she didn't have any money, Park, without hesitation, used a metal pipe to beat her unconscious. At the time, many group members witnessed the scene but didn't intervene as they were too accustomed to such acts. When Choi regained consciousness, she found herself in a hotel room surrounded by Park and 12 other group members. Terrified and panicked, Choi tried to run to the door but was stopped. Park ordered the group to lock the door, blocking all exits. The group then attacked her, tearing off her clothes and taking turns sexually assaulting her. Not stopping there, they used other objects in the room to intensify the torture, causing severe injuries to Choi. These barbaric acts not only left physical scars but also caused significant long-term health issues for Choi, particularly severe gynecological problems. Park ordered the entire incident to be recorded on mobile phones and cameras, ensuring there was enough evidence to blackmail Choi into silence. If you dare to speak up, this video will be spread everywhere, Park said with a sinister smile, delivering a threat that left Choi frozen in fear. Choi felt so ashamed and humiliated that she couldn't tell anyone, not even her family. The fear of having her reputation destroyed forced her into silence. When one girl was no longer enough to satisfy them, these monsters began to have even more depraved thoughts. Park demanded that Choi bring her 13-year-old younger sister and 16-year-old cousin to Miryang. If she refused, the video would be released online. In fear and desperation, Choi was forced to comply. She led her two closest loved ones to a place she knew was full of danger. In Miryang, all three girls became victims. The group continued their assaults and also stole all their money and jewelry. Choi, despite her pain and despair, didn't dare to reveal the truth to anyone. She feared that speaking out would ruin not only her life but her family's as well. Her younger sister and cousin felt the same. Overwhelmed by fear, they endured the suffering in silence. A year passed, but Choi's pain didn't fade. She became withdrawn, frequently startled, and displayed unusual psychological symptoms that worried her family. Choi's aunt, who had been observing her, realized something was wrong. She decided to approach her niece to uncover the truth. "Is there something you're hiding from me? Please tell me, and I will help you," her aunt gently comforted and encouraged Choi to open up. At this moment, Choi broke down and recounted the horrifying ordeal she and her loved ones had endured. The aunt was shocked by the revelation. She immediately called Choi's mother. Choi's mother returned quickly, unable to believe that her daughter had endured such unbearable pain for an entire year without anyone knowing. After hearing the entire story, Choi's mother decided to bring the case to light. Despite her fears, she couldn't let this crime remain buried. On November 25, 2004, Choi's mother, with all her courage, called the police to report the incident. She demanded strict protection of her daughter's identity. The police also promised a confidential investigation and the protection of the victim's identity. However, this promise was quickly broken. On December 6, 2004, based on the information Choi provided, the police conducted a major public operation announcing that 44 suspects had been brought to the Namdong police station in Ulsan. Among the 44 arrested, 35 were high school students from Miryang. What should have been a confidential investigation now became the center of public attention. During the investigation, a report containing the victim's name, age, and address was leaked. This caused Choi and her family to fall into panic. The police had promised to assign a female officer to interview the victim to minimize psychological trauma. Instead, Choi was confronted by a male officer. During the first interview, the officer was not only unprofessional, but also insulted Choi with cruel questions. "Didn't you enjoy it? Or did you willingly go to them? You've ruined the reputation of my hometown, Miryang. What do you plan to do about my life and the people here?" These remarks left Choi feeling more humiliated and terrified than ever. Furthermore, the police required Choi to face each of the 44 suspects directly. Each time, she had to recount the details of what had happened. In total, Choi was summoned over 30 times for the investigation. Each interrogation lasted 7 to 8 hours, exhausting her both physically and mentally. The injustice and inhumane treatment by the police enraged women's and civil rights organizations in South Korea, leading to protests and demands for immediate action. Public scrutiny intensified, focusing on how the police failed to protect the victim and instead subjected her to further severe psychological trauma. Public outrage peaked, forcing the police to disband the initial investigative team of 4 officers directly handling the case and 4 others involved during the process. A new investigative team with female officers was formed to minimize the victim's psychological trauma and restore public trust. Under growing public pressure, the prosecution established a special investigation unit to ensure transparency and objectivity in the case. A reporter from MBC, who was the first to cover the case, revealed that shortly after the incident, a promotion review for the officers involved had taken place, fueling further public anger. 8 officers disciplined earlier for investigative misconduct were reinstated within a year, exacerbating societal frustration. During this time, Choi and her family received threats from the suspects and their parents. "If you ruin our son's life, you won't live in peace," one parent directly told Choi's mother, intensifying her fears for her family's safety. At Choi's school, the case became a hot topic of gossip. However, Instead of protection, Choi was scolded by some teachers, who accused her of bringing disgrace to the school. Some teachers even implied that Choi was to blame for the incident, further damaging her self-esteem. The identities of Choi and her younger sister were leaked, forcing the family to move elsewhere. In January 2005, Choi, her sister, and their mother relocated to Seoul to start anew. In Seoul, Choi and her sister were admitted to John Severance Hospital for treatment. Doctors revealed that Choi's condition was severe. She suffered from both physical and psychological trauma, with dangerous complications resulting from prolonged abuse and neglect. During therapy sessions, Choi often cried. Alone with her therapist, she shared feelings of abandonment by her mother and the torment she endured from her abusers, seeking empathy. After a month of treatment, Choi was discharged, but her depression and extreme thoughts persisted. She attempted suicide several times by jumping in front of subway trains, but was rescued in time. Concerned by Choi's dangerous behavior, her family decided to readmit her to the hospital for continued psychiatric care. During this time, Choi's father and relatives of the suspects visited her, proposing reconciliation. It was revealed that Choi's father, an alcoholic, had agreed to a settlement, accepting 50 million won in compensation from the suspects' families. However, the compensation money was not used to support Choi and her sister. Instead, most of it was spent by her father on building a private home and distributing it to relatives. The settlement also resulted in significant sentence reductions for the perpetrators. Out of 44 suspects, only 10 were prosecuted, 20 were sent to juvenile detention, and 13 were released. After the settlement, Choi's father transferred custody of her and her sister back to their mother. The two sisters lived with their mother in a small rented room in Seoul, relying on social assistance. Meanwhile, Choi's younger brother continued to live with their father in Ulsan. Not long after, Choi's father passed away due to alcohol abuse, while Choi and her mother continued their fight for justice. They filed a lawsuit against the police, demanding compensation for severe investigative misconduct. On March 18, 2007, after persistent efforts by Choi's family, the Seoul High Court ordered the government to compensate the victim and her family. According to the ruling, Choi and her sister received 30 million won, while their mother was awarded 10 million won. On June 16, 2008, the South Korean Supreme Court upheld the ruling, concluding the financial compensation aspect of the prolonged case. By April 2005, Choi and her mother began searching for a new high school for her to continue her education, but every school refused to accept her. After legal intervention, a public high school in Seoul finally agreed to admit Choi, but challenges arose almost immediately. One day, the mother of one of the perpetrators came to Choi's new school, requesting the school and parents to sign a petition for her son's sentence to be reduced. Unable to endure the harassment, Choi was forced to drop out, once again giving up hope for a normal future. Choi's lawyer shared that after leaving school, she fell into a deep depression. She spent most of her time on the computer and worked short-term part-time jobs. Choi also struggled with weight gain due to stress-induced overeating, leading to frequent job changes and a constant sense of instability. Meanwhile, among the perpetrators, only 10 out of 44 were prosecuted and sent to juvenile detention, while 34 escaped criminal charges thanks to the settlement. Of the 34 not prosecuted, 20 were sent to juvenile correctional facilities but had no criminal records. Another member of the group was transferred to a different police jurisdiction due to involvement in an unrelated case, but faced no responsibility for Choi's case. In April 2005, the Ulsan People's Court ruled that all 10 prosecuted individuals be sent to juvenile detention, officially concluding the legal penalties. Prosecutors argued that the assaults and threats were not severe enough to qualify as coercion, and that there was insufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges against the perpetrators. This outcome closed the case in frustration for Choi's family and the public, as the cruel offenders left no legal records behind. The case ended with the conclusion that justice had been served, but societal anger over the injustice in the legal system remained unresolved. 20 years after the case, on June 1, 2024, A mysterious YouTuber shocked the public by uploading a video revealing the identities of some perpetrators and suspects in the Miriam case. The videos garnered millions of views, with the YouTuber accusing Kim, the mastermind, of escaping punishment while leading a fulfilled life with a successful career and a happy family. Kim and his accomplices remained in contact and even met regularly as though nothing had happened. After their identities were exposed, Kim and several other suspects were fired from their jobs and faced harsh criticism from the online community. The public could not forgive the perpetrators, condemning them for living comfortably while the victim suffered without receiving the justice she deserved. The YouTuber's videos sparked a heated debate over personal punishment measures, with increasing numbers of internet users joining in to expose the identities of the perpetrators. By June 11, 2024, police received 3 complaints and 13 defamation petitions, not only from the suspects, but also from individuals mistakenly identified. While some YouTubers claimed Choi's family approved the exposure of the perpetrators' identities, the Korean Sexual Violence Relief Center opposed these actions. The center stated, "The unauthorized disclosure of the perpetrators' identities causes further harm to the victim. This does not bring justice, but only creates additional conflict." On June 21, 2024, one of the suspects sent a handwritten letter to the mysterious YouTuber, writing, "20 years ago, out of ignorance and foolishness, I committed an unforgivable crime." This apology immediately triggered another wave of debate, with many criticizing that such belated remorse could never compensate for the victim's suffering. The case continued to be a hot topic on social media, with many calling for the case to be reopened and the responsibilities of each individual to be clarified in court. This concludes the video. Thank you for following this compelling story. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to catch more fascinating stories.